Hi friends, in this video related to chapter units and measurement, we will study about physical quantities and their classification into fundamental and derived physical quantities. Then we will define all fundamental physical quantities and then we will obtain derived physical quantities from fundamental physical quantities. Hence, be ready with your pen and notebook to pen down all the important points for your future revisions. So first, say quantity. What is quantity? Anything that can be measured is termed as a quantity. Now, what are physical quantities? The measurable things, that is the quantities that are used in physics, are called physical quantities. Now, depending upon their existence, physical quantities will be classified into two types. First, fundamental or basic physical quantities. These will be those physical quantities which have their independent existence. It means the physical quantities that do not depend on any other physical quantities for their existence are called fundamental or basic physical quantities. Now, the second, the derived physical quantities. Derived physical quantities are those physical quantities which are obtained from fundamental physical quantities. They are obtained by multiplying and dividing fundamental physical quantities. Also, depending upon the requirement of a physical quantity for its complete representation, physical quantities are classified into two types. One, scalar, and second, vector. Scalars are those physical quantities that require only magnitude for their complete representation. Like if I say that my mass is 90 kg, then it doesn't require direction for its complete representation. Hence, mass is a scalar quantity. In the same way, if I say it's 8 o'clock, then it also doesn't require any direction for its complete representation. Hence, time is also a scalar quantity. But if I say that I applied a force of 100 Newton, until or unless I will specify the direction of application of force, my statement will be incomplete. It means force will always require magnitude as well as direction both for its complete representation. Hence, it will be a vector quantity. Thus, vector quantities are the quantities that require magnitude as well as direction both for their complete representation. Scalars and vectors will be studied later on, perhaps in third chapter, but here in units and measurement we will remain confined with fundamental and derived physical quantities. Now, there are 9 fundamental physical quantities, and rest all quantities which will be used in physics will be obtained from those 9 fundamental physical quantities only. Hence, the rest of the physical quantities except fundamental physical quantities will be called derived physical quantities. 9 fundamental physical quantities are length, mass, time, temperature, electric current, luminous intensity, amount of substance, angle, and solid angle. Now, we will define all these physical quantities one by one. Say first, length. Length is the separation between two positions. Then mass. Mass is the amount of matter contained in a body, where matter is anything that occupies space and has mass. Next, time. Time is the interval between two events. If we come to temperature, then since from the beginning there are several definitions related to temperature. The initial most, the temperature is the measure of hotness or coolness of a body. Later on, it was found that heat is also a form of energy, and heat flows from a body at a higher temperature to the body at lower temperature. Hence, for some time it was defined as the physical quantity that determines the direction of flow of heat. But nowadays, based upon kinetic theory of matter, temperature is defined as the measure of average kinetic energy possessed by molecules of a body. That is, temperature of a body is the measure of average kinetic energy possessed by molecules of that body. And depending upon the conditions of temperature and pressure, the molecules of a body can have translational or vibrational or rotational or any combination of two of these or all the three types of kinetic energies simultaneously. So next is electric current. To define electric current, let a potential difference V is applied across the ends of a conductor. It means we have connected one end of the conductor to the positive terminal of battery and its another end to negative terminal of battery. This potential difference will establish an electric field within the conductor, and that electric field will exert force on the charges present within the conductor, and effect of that force will be only on free electrons. Due to that force, free electrons will begin to move along the length of conductor towards positive end. It means when a potential difference will be applied across the ends of a conductor, then charge in the form of free electrons will begin to move along the length of conductor, and this charge passing through any section of conductor in 1 second will be called electric current. Thus, electric current passing through a conductor is defined as the amount of charge passing through any section of conductor in 1 second when a potential difference is applied across its ends, because cause of electric current is potential difference. So current is charge per unit time. Now next is luminous intensity. Luminous intensity is related to the brightness of a source of light, and the brightness of source of light is directly proportional to the intensity of light coming from it. And for any wave, intensity is the energy incident per second per unit area. But in case of light, our eyes are not equally sensitive for all colors of light. Hence, energy per second per unit area is not used for measure the intensity of light. Hence, we use a new term called luminous intensity. Luminous intensity is defined as the luminous flux per unit solid angle. Now, what is visible region? Visible region means electromagnetic waves with wavelength 3800 angstrom to 7800 angstrom. These electromagnetic waves with wavelength between 3800 angstrom to 7800 angstrom are able to excite our retina on striking it, and hence are responsible for effect of vision. Hence, luminous flux is the energy emitted by a source of light within the wavelength range 3800 angstrom to 7800 angstrom per second. It means energy emitted by a source of light within visible region per second is called luminous flux. And luminous flux emitted by a source of light per unit solid angle. Solid angle is a three-dimensional angle. We will discuss it here. So, luminous flux, that is energy in visible region emitted by a source per second per unit solid angle, will be defined as luminous intensity of a source of light. Now, the next is amount of substance. It is the quantity of substance that contains 6.023 into 10 to the power 26 constituent particles of that substance. This number is called Avogadro's number. So, a quantity of substance containing as much constituent particles of that substance as Avogadro's number will be termed as amount of substance. Now next is angle. In physics we use circular measure of angle, and in circular measure angle is defined in terms of arc length and radius of circle. Say here an arc length is subtending an angle theta at the center of circle, then this angle will be defined as the ratio of arc length to the radius of circle. Thus, angle in a plane, which is defined as the inclination of either two lines or of two rays or of two planes, is defined as the ratio of length of the arc to the radius of the circle. Next is solid angle. Solid angle means a three-dimensional angle, and this solid angle subtended by a surface at a point, say P, will be obtained by joining all points lying on the periphery of this surface with point P. If we will join all points lying on the periphery of this surface with point P, then we will obtain a conical figure, and that conical figure will make a three-dimensional angle at its apex. This three-dimensional angle called solid angle is represented by omega. If area of this surface is A, then solid angle subtended by this surface at point P will be defined by using the area of this surface perpendicular to the line joining point and the surface, and the distance of point P from the surface means distance of point P from the geometrical center of surface. If it is the geometrical center of surface, then distance between point and surface will be, say this point is O, then OP will give the distance between point and the surface. And if effect of this surface perpendicular to R, yani perpendicular to OP, is A perpendicular, then solid angle subtended by area A at point P will be defined as the ratio of area of surface perpendicular to the line joining point and the surface, that is A perpendicular, divided by square of distance between point P and the surface, that is R square. So solid angle subtended by a surface at a point is defined as the ratio of area of surface perpendicular to the line joining point and the surface to the square of distance of point from the surface. Now in case of sphere, for sphere radius is always perpendicular to the surface. So if we will take an area A on the surface of sphere of radius r, then solid angle subtended by this area at center of sphere will be omega is equal to A upon r square. Here we are not saying A perpendicular because the area itself is perpendicular to radius, that is for sphere only. But in general, solid angle subtended by surface at point P will be defined in terms of area perpendicular to PO divided by PO square. Now we come, it was all about the fundamental physical quantities. These two that is angle and solid angle, are also called supplementary fundamental physical quantities. Now we come to derived physical quantities. Derived physical quantities means the physical quantities that will be obtained from fundamental physical quantities. Since these physical quantities do not depend on other physical quantities for their existence, hence they are fundamental, and rest all physical quantities except these 9 will be derived physical quantities. Now we will see the derivation of a few derived physical quantities from fundamental physical quantities. Say first we come to area. Area is length into breadth, and length and breadth both are lengths. So length multiplied twice, that is length into length, that is length square, will give us area. In the same way, volume will be length into breadth into height, and length, breadth, height, all the three are lengths. So it will be length into length into length. So it will be length cube. So length will be multiplied thrice to get volume. Now we know density is mass upon volume. Mass is fundamental physical quantity, and volume in terms of fundamental physical quantity is length cube. So it will be written as mass into length raised to the power -3, or mass upon length cube. So by dividing mass by length cube, we will obtain density. In the same way, if we will go to speed or velocity, then speed or velocity both are length upon time. Speed is distance upon time, velocity is displacement upon time. Distance and displacement both are lengths, so both are length upon time. And length divided by time is speed or velocity. Now when we come to acceleration, acceleration is rate of change of velocity, any change in velocity upon time. If we will subtract a velocity from another velocity, say 10 meter per second minus 5 meter per second, then that will give us 5 meter per second. It means velocity minus velocity will give us velocity. So change in velocity will be velocity, and velocity upon time will be acceleration. Velocity itself is length upon time, so it will be length upon time. So length divided by time square, that will give acceleration. In the same way, force is equal to mass into acceleration. Acceleration is length upon time square. So if we will multiply it by mass, we will get force. So force mass into length upon time square. Now next is work or energy or torque. Work or energy or torque will be force into length, because work is force into displacement. In the same way, torque is magnitude of force multiplied by perpendicular distance between axis of rotation and line of action of force. So it means both are force into length. So force we are already having, we will multiply it by length, so we will get length square. It will become mass into length square upon time square. Now power is work upon time, so we will divide work by time to get power. So it will become mass into length square upon time cube. Now if we come to universal gravitational constant, then we know the formula. Gravitational force F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square, and this will give us G is equal to Fr square upon m1 m2, and F already we are having mass into length upon time square. So it will become mass into length upon time square, that is for force, into r square means length square, upon mass into mass means mass square. So it will be so it will be mass minus 1 length cube upon time square. Now if we come to surface tension, term surface tension is used for liquids. A free surface of a liquid acts as a stretched membrane. If it acts as a stretched membrane, then if we will imagine a line over the surface of liquid, then on that line there will always act a force per unit length tangential to the surface of liquid, and that force per unit length is surface tension. Force already we are having, so this will be divided by length, so we will get length cancelled and it will become mass upon time square. Next is coefficient of viscosity. When a body moves through a fluid, then that fluid exerts an opposing force on that body, and that opposing force exerted by a fluid on the body passing through it is called viscous force. Viscous force depends upon a coefficient of viscosity represented by eta, and here I have used Stokes law to obtain expression for eta. Actually, if a spherical body of radius r moves through a fluid with speed v, then fluid exerts a backward dragging force, that is viscous force, on the body given by F is equal to 6 pi eta rv. Since F is 6 pi eta rv, eta will be F upon 6 pi rv. F means mass into length upon time square. 6 pi nothing, so r length into v length upon time. Six pi being constant, there will be nothing for 6 pi. So this is equal to mass, length will get cancelled, upon length into time. Now we can see that to obtain area we have raised power 2 on length. To find volume we have raised power 3 on length. In the same way, to obtain density we have raised power 1 on mass and power minus 3 on length. Similarly, for force we have raised power 1 on mass, power 1 on length and power minus 2 on time. These powers raised over fundamental physical quantities in order to obtain derived physical quantities are called dimensions. Thus, dimensions of a derived physical quantity are the powers raised over fundamental physical quantities in order to obtain that derived physical quantity. Say, if one asks what are the dimensions of force, then we will say that the dimensions of force in mass, length and time are 1, 1 and minus 2. In the same way, if one asks what are the dimensions of coefficient of viscosity, then dimensions of coefficient of viscosity in mass, length and time are 1, minus 1 and minus 1. Because in order to obtain coefficient of viscosity, we will have to raise power 1 on mass, power minus 1 on length and power minus 1 on time. If in the expressions of these derived physical quantities, mass, length, time are replaced by m, l and t, then the expressions obtained will be called dimensional formulae of that derived physical quantity. Say, if we want to find out the dimensional formula of area, then dimensional formula of area will be L2, because the only fundamental quantity used to obtain area is length. So length will be replaced by L. If one asks to find the dimensional formula of volume, then it will be length cube. Length will be replaced by capital L, so it will be L cube. That of density, mass will be replaced by capital M and length by capital L, ml minus 3. Speed, length will be replaced by L, time will be replaced by t, so lt minus 1. Acceleration, lt minus 2. Dimensional formula of force, mlt minus 2, because power raised over mass is 1, power raised on length is 1, while that on time is minus 2. Dimensional formula of work, ml2t minus 2, of power, ml2t minus 3. Of universal gravitational constant, dimensional formula m minus 1 L3 t minus 2. Dimensional formula of surface tension, m t minus 2. Of coefficient of viscosity, m L minus 1 t minus 1. In the same way, if we have the formula of a physical quantity, then we can find out the dimensions and hence dimensional formula of that physical quantity by representing this physical quantity in terms of fundamental physical quantities. If we are asked to determine the dimensions and hence dimensional formula of potential difference, then we know the definition of potential difference. Potential difference across any 2 points within an electric field is defined as the work done in taking a unit charge from one point to another. That is potential difference. V is work done per unit charge, and we know that work is mass into length square upon time square. Now what is charge? Q is equal to IT, yani current into time. Current and time both are fundamental physical quantities. So current into time, and this will give us mass into length square upon time cube into electric current. And from this we can find out the dimensions of potential difference. Dimensions of potential difference in mass, length, time and electric current are 1, 2, minus 3 and minus 1. But if one asks the dimensional formula, then dimensional formula of potential difference will be m L2 t minus 3, and electric current is represented by I. Sometimes it is also represented by capital A, but capital A stands for ampere. That's why we are using I to the power minus 1. Now if we come to the resistance, then resistance R is equal to V upon I by Ohm's law. So V already we know, mass into length square upon time cube, and now electric current into electric current, so electric current square. And this shows that dimensions of resistance in mass, length, time and electric current are 1, 2, -3 and -2, because we have raised powers 1, 2, -3 and -2 on mass, length, time and electric current in order to obtain resistance. This implies dimensional formula of resistance is mL2 T -3 and I -2. And now I hope that all of you would have understood how to determine dimensions and dimensional formulae of derived physical quantities. In our next video, we will study about the units of physical quantities and then measurement of physical quantities.